Yo, hey, check this out.
You're gonna learn today.
Welcome to the LakeSide Chat. I'm your host, Brother John Muhammad. As always, we talk with community leaders, political figures, and everyday people. This week, we're blessed to have a good friend of mine, good friend of the community, powerhouse in the community, leader of the union. Yeah, I'm talking about you, right? Alphonso Mayfield. Welcome to the LakeSide Chat, my brother. Long time coming, man. Long time coming.
Happy to be here, man. Happy to be here.
And so those who don't know you, if we had to say in a word, who is Alphonso?
In a word?
A few words.
In a few words. Humble servant of the members of Florida Public Services Union.
Right. Florida Public Services Union. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And president. Can't forget that, right? That's kind of important.
President, servant.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And then your role with the union.
Mm-hmm. Overall role with the union?
Yes.
So I'm on our International Executive Board, but I would say the role I carve out for myself is strategist, facilitator, driver of our thought around community wealth and building power in communities and communities of color specifically, and trying to help bridge the gap between the union and the community. It should be the same thing.
Right.
We organize around the whole worker, which means we want to build power while you're at work and when you come home.
Right.
And in every aspect of your life.
And that was kind of revolutionary, wasn't it? I mean, just thinking about how you say bridging the gap, because I mean, me growing up hearing about unions, it was always about the work site, the jobs, and the conditions, and you never really heard about the union operating in the community. What was that like to be able to bring that kind of culture? Was it always there, or was that something that you introduced?
So I would say it's, I don't know, I would call it revolutionary. I would say it was taking it back to what it was supposed to be.
Okay.
And that's what it was.
Okay,
so we were stripping out all the pop, getting right back to the hip hop.
Okay. yeah, when it's just beats. And,
just beats.
Yeah, not a whole lot of singing just on beats, the tracks, man. And all of that good stuff.
I'm cool with the singing on the track, but it's just some good beats.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what's one of the key things as far as like your mission? I know it was saying, I read your bio, and it was saying like to really revitalize the union movement, you know, and you know, for at one point, you know, unions were real strong, and we saw when unions were strong how that benefited the communities, and then there was this decline. And so what's it been like to try and bring back that union movement?
So the way I think about it is, this is our moment. Mm-hmm. It's time for things to change. It's time to build power, and it's also time to reinvent who we are. It's our job to make sure that people understand that the union is a vehicle to build them a better life.
Right.
The union is the vehicle to build in a better community. And the union, when it operates at its fullest intent, is the voice of the community and the voice of workers.
Right.
And I also want to say, like, when we talk about workers, if you are a small business owner, mm-hmm. or a small business owner of color, or one or two person shop, you are a worker.
Right.
And the union is also a place for you.
Right.
Because if we want to build strong, healthy economies, we have to build strong, healthy economies through ownership.
Right.
And we view ourselves as an asset and an ally to facilitate and help making that happen.
Right. And I know with, you know, just the conversations around unions, you have some people that say, well, the unions, you know, especially in Florida, why would I be a member of a union? Why would I join a union? What would you say to those who think that, you know, they can still get the benefits of the union without actually joining it?
So I would flip that a little bit and say it a little bit differently. Like, people who aren't in the union get a benefit from not being in the union, but I would say the people who really get the benefit of you not being in the union are the people who are spending millions and billions of dollars to try to destroy unions, because they're trying to take the one agent of change for you building power in your community.
Right.
So if somebody is willing to spend out of their pocket billions of dollars to try to keep something from you, you might want to stop and say,
why is that? Yeah, and why would I keep myself from it?
Exactly.
Right. That's self-selection. It's kind of like people who say, well, voting don't matter. Yeah. But then you got, you know, all these laws and rules in place to limit people from participating in the electoral system.
Exactly.
It's crazy, man. And so just thinking about like some of the work that you've done, that you're doing recently, I know one of the conversations that we talk about is black wealth and building community wealth. So,
exactly.
So what are some of the things that the union's working on right now in that area?
So I think, if you think about the frame of how you actually want to build better lives and to do away with poverty, there's a lot of discussion now about income inequality, but we think that the focus of the discussion has to move to wealth inequality. Right. And so what are vehicles of wealth in the communities that can be built? And also, the way that our economies have been set up in our local communities, most people think that things just function the way that they function just because, but they don't. An economy, including a local economy, is a political act. It is an intentional political act. And people do not know that they have agency over what that economy looks like. So if you think about it from the perspective that capital comes in either through people's work or through ownership in other ways, but that capital is immediately stripped out, right? So what is our role in helping to define what our local economies look like so that capital comes in, but is incentivized to stay in our community, move around in our community, and build wealth that can be transferable to our kids.
And that's what you said is a great point, because we often highlight the statistic of the circulation of the dollar, and some say 6 hours in the black community, and they compare it to other communities, but they don't really do what you're doing and say, okay, well, how can we change that beyond just support black businesses? That's kind of the common thing. Okay, well, just support black businesses or spend your money with black businesses. What you're saying is that it's going to take more things than just going out and spending your money with a black person in order to keep the dollar circulating. What are some of the ideas that you have around?
So let's break down the levels. Right? So if you think about it, you spend money in a community, right? You spend money with a business, but how capitalizes that business, right? So can we help expand the amount of capital that business has to be able to expand its capital base to be able to do more work? Can we help bring in technical assistance, which meaning that the people in our community, their first love, if your first love is building houses, then you want to spend your time building houses, right? HR might not be your strong suit. Maybe recruiting might not be your strong suit. Maybe doing taxes might not be your strong suit. But that's what's going to help your business to flourish. You think about the people who either they own restaurants, they run daycares. Their passion is that work.
They love the children. That's it. They love to cook. I see what you're saying.
So can you help to bring in vehicles that help to support people to do those other things, right? So that they can focus on what they need to focus on, and then they can also turn around and build either through credit unions or community development funds to help do other development to keep the capital there.
And so this is different from like an incubator then, because I'm hearing a lot of talk about like financial empowerment centers and incubators, but an incubator traditionally is just a place where you go to help kind of start your business. How is what you're saying different from actually having that incubator model, like for example the St. Pete Greenhouse or these financial empowerment centers? What would be the difference between what they're doing and what you're discussing right now?
Well, an incubator only helps you incubate, but what happens when you get out? So a lot of businesses, they go under 3 to 5 years later. So what happens? But also, it's bigger than just those individual standalone businesses. Let's talk about banks. Right? Let's talk about the specific strategic intent of a business when it comes in, or a bank that's supposed to move money. I looked at a stat where, and I think this was actually for Philadelphia, but they looked at the amount of loans going into the specific segment of the black community, and they broke it down. 80% of all the loans that were distributed in that particular geographic region actually went to white families. It was like 6% that actually went to black families, including black families that lived there.
So 80% and then 6%. So it's still another 14% that's gone somewhere else,
So can you envision a financial institution or financial institutions or economic drivers who actually say, we want to make part of our strategic intent to make sure that we not only spend money, but we want to spend money like an investment so that it circulates in the community to help drive development. Not that it's just something that we do on the side, not that we just drop or airplane money in communities. We want to partner with the people who live there to actually drive development and growth in a way that it incentivizes other growth in that community. And because it's not just enough for a black business to own the restaurant. What about the people who provide the silverware? What about the people who provide the signage? What about the people that actually help with the tax? What about the people that help? Can you help build an ecosystem? Because those things existed, but they existed under segregation.
It was a law. Well, you couldn't really go anywhere.
You had to, And so it was also landlocked. And so the thing that I think that we have to remember is that it's not just enough to put those things in play. They have to be done intentionally. And also, and from a political perspective, we have to move the political levers to make sure that it is advantageous for those things to happen. like we have talked, and you guys have done a lot of really good work around community redevelopment authorities. So imagine something like a bank or a credit union, right? Working with consumers, helping them to be able to get capitalized personally, helping them in a way that is not a check cashing or a loan place, right?
Right.
So you imagine that, so people actually own it. Imagine on the commercial side, something like a CDFI helping businesses to actually be capitalized. And imagine all that working within the CRA district that is working jointly with them, all with them having the same strategic intent at the same time.
Yeah.
And you have other actors working around them, helping to offer the other technical assistance tools to help them be able to operate more effectively.
And what you said is really on point. And it's a word that you said in there that is kind of left out of these discussions a lot. You said economic development and growth. Because a lot of times we hear economic development and that has its own connotation, and it's usually just buildings and those types of things. But when you talk about growing an economy and really developing that ecosystem, I think that's an important part of the conversation that should be highlighted as well, because people don't really talk like that in most of these circles.
And the thing I left out too is two things. Intentionality is one, and then I would also say coordination and collaboration, because to an extent, a lot of these things already exist, but they don't necessarily work in a way that's coordinated. So they aren't singularly or even multilaterally focused in at least the same direction. And they don't work collaboratively or in a coordinated fashion to be able to build off of. It's like anything else. If I want to knock down a tree, if I'm hitting it with a spoon, that's not going to knock it down. If I'm hitting it with an axe, that's more force. If I'm trying to chop a tree down by myself, I might get it's gonna take longer. If you, me, and Jabari and Ashley are doing it, and Shaw, it's gonna come down quicker if we're working in concert and we're working with intent.
That's right. We're working in concert, intent. We know what the goal is.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's true. Because in our community, we say we're knocking down a tree, but you got one that's using the spoon, one that's chopping this part, and everybody they mean well, but it's just that coordination and that coordinated effort.
And the one thing I would say too is we don't have. So a lot of times, because of the greater body politic, we allow ourselves to be distracted. We do not have the luxury of not operating with intentionality, collaboration, and coordination.
Absolutely. So what we're going to do, that's a great point. We're going to take a real quick break, and we're going to explore that a little bit more and talk about the intentionality, collaboration, and what's the other piece? Coordination. We'll talk about that in a few seconds when we come back. This is Brother John Muhammad with the LakeSide Chat. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the LakeSide Chat. I'm your host, Brother John Muhammad, here with Alphonso Mayfield, President of Fpsu, Florida Public Service Union. Good brother from Mississippi too. We didn't cover that part of it.
Yes, brother from Mississippi.
I really wanted to explore that part of the conversation.
Explore it. I love talking about my home.
Mississippi, man. Yeah. How you end up in Florida from Mississippi?
So I lived in Mississippi, worked for the Attorney General, worked for the governor when I got out of college. A little bit in grad school. After working for the governor, went to work on my first presidential race. After did that, went to work for the governor of New Jersey for a while. Did some other political work. Went to the union, did some political work, lived and worked in 30 states, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Ran a statewide referendum in Missouri. People I was working with was like, there's a local in Florida. It'd be a really good idea for you to go down and work with them. They need some leadership.
Okay.
Great people. And so I came down, and I've been here ever since.
I like how you just kind of gloss over that and make it seem like that was just some small stuff too. Like I worked on a presidential campaign, worked for the Attorney General. He's a brother from
Worked on a
Mississippi.
couple presidential.
Couple presidentials, right. Couple presidential campaign. I mean, but it's just amazing to know that, we have such a resource in you, and I think I don't want to overlook that and really gloss over that, because when people look at this, they will say, who is that dude? Like, who is this guy that's talking all of this stuff about black wealth and community? So I think that kind of helps to ground people into your experience and what you bring into the conversation.
The backbone of my work experience is politics. I've worked or led a couple of dozen political campaigns.
Okay.
On all different levels, either the federal level, presidential, congressional, city council, ward committeemen, selectmen, congressmen, state-led, state-led, city council, governor, whatever. in a bunch of different states.
Right. And so the connection between politics and community wealth. Let's talk about that a little bit, because that's, people say they want to get money, but they don't want to do nothing with politics. I don't mess with politics. I'm just trying to chase this check. What would you say to people who don't really make the connection between politics and wealth building?
That's like catching a fish with a net with a hole in the bottom of it. You ain't gonna keep it. Okay. Your work and how you hustle is the net, but the politics is how you hold on to it.
Okay.
So we can get a lot, but if we can't codify it,
right,
or it's like trying to catch a fish with a net with the opening of the net being covered. Politics can do that too. So we talk a lot about black wealth, and we kind of talk like we talked about earlier.
Right.
We talk about Black Wall Street, and we talk about kind of these historical examples of black wealth, but we talk about how that was taken away.
Okay.
And so there is a historical context of this country because structural racism is so baked into the body politic of the country and how things were set up, that just because you make it doesn't mean it can't be taken from you. And so we always have to be very intentional and mindful about not only how we're hustling and actually trying to make the wealth or creating the dynamics for us to build community wealth. We also have to remember we have to create the political dynamics to make those things sustainable.
Awesome.
And so politics is the vehicle to be able to make it happen. Politics is your ability for agency. We didn't talk about this earlier, but the way that I talk about it in the local with our members and with our staff is MPL.
Okay.
Money, power, leverage.
Okay.
Everything that we have to do is about money, power, leverage.
Right.
And you can and if you want to flip it and talk about it a little bit differently, money is resources, power is agency, the ability for you to be able to decide, and leverage is influence.
Right.
So we have to look at the work and the way we talk about the work in a way that gives our people in our communities the greatest agency over how their resources are used and give them the greatest influence to help to frame and decide and execute on how it's used.
Oh,
that's what we do.
That's amazing.
And that's the power of and that's when you combine the relationship work, because really union and community work, I don't see a line there.
Right.
I think there has to be a strategy, but it's all about relationship. If you have the relationship and you can curate and make a demand,
right,
and you have the political power to be able to say, here's how you execute and here's how you do that, then it'll happen.
Right.
If you don't, and we've seen this politically, people say we want jobs.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Great demand,
but then you get Walmart jobs that don't pay anything,
right?
And they get a big tax break. They stay here 3 or 4 years and then they leave.
We just seen that, literally.
I know,
literally seen that. Yeah,
I know, right? Yeah. So we have to do a better job of being in relationship with our community to make sure that we're curating the right demand.
Okay,
under the right
because just demanding a job itself. Without specifying and really drilling that down, to say these are the type of jobs we want. This is the skills that we know we need, and then working with the institutional people like the schools and the trade schools to make sure that people are qualified to fill those jobs is an important part of the work also.
So you just said something really important, right? So think about it. If we have the ability to create trade schools for trade jobs, we have community colleges, we have universities, all those within a geographic area. We have jobs either with the city or with school districts, with also big economic drivers, right? They spend billions of dollars in communities.
Right.
And have you ever looked at how many of those billions of dollars that they spend with consultants or contractors are spent with people of color?
Yeah, we don't really look at it.
And when you look at it, it's a very small amount of money.
Right.
So if you were to align all of those by curating the demand and say that they should all work in concert,
right,
how much economic power and economic activity could you have?
Right.
Because the big boys, Koch brothers, the other folks, they realize that.
Yeah.
So they want to move us out the way politically so that they can say that those resources should go to them.
Right. And that's what they've been successful at doing. And they use the political arena to continue to enrich themselves while the workers actually suffer as a result of that. And so just thinking about political empowerment and the political environment statewide. I mean, what's your take on what's happening right now around the state as it relates to, we talked about it earlier as well. So, you talked about how did you say, a wave versus a good year?
The wave versus a good year. A good year is you win the races you're supposed to win. Right? And a couple that you weren't supposed to win. A wave is that you win the races you were supposed to win, a few that you weren't supposed to win, and you win the vast majority of the ones that are within a shot of 1 or 3 to 5%.
Okay.
Right?
Gotcha.
But now the difference between you having a good year and a wave is the difference between whether or not you have the infrastructure and the strategy that you need and not having it.
Right.
And so I'm not talking about the party. I'm not talking about anyone else. I'm saying from our perspective in our communities, we do not have the luxury, right? If the last election taught us anything, the last city election taught us anything.
Yeah.
Okay? We don't have the luxury to go quietly into the night and just say, hey man, roll the dice out, whatever happens, happens.
Right.
We have to be smarter, more strategic, and we have to execute better than that.
Right.
And sometimes, even in that dynamic, you have to be willing to look somebody in the face and tell them, nah, I ain't doing it.
Right.
I want this instead.
Yeah. And really, like you said, make those demands, and then you have the agency to be able to back up that demand, so they know, like, okay, we can't not give you what you want.
Right.
Like, that's not an option. Compliance with this demand is not an option because we know the value of the work that you're doing and what you're doing and the base that you built.
So let me say this again. Nah, we're not doing it. We want something different. We want something better. We want what we deserve. Say it one more time. Nah, we're not doing it. Not going for the okie doke.
That's right. All right, we're going to take another quick break, man. I love this dude, man. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more from the LakeSide Chat. Welcome back to the LakeSide Chat. I'm your host, Brother John Muhammad, here with President of FPSU, Florida Public Services Union, Alphonso Mayfield, and we're covering a lot of ground, talking about black wealth, political empowerment, the political environment statewide right now, and his upbringing coming from Mississippi up through Missouri, through all these different places.
Through New Jersey.
New Jersey, yeah. You've been around the block a little bit, man. That's beautiful, man. And you look good too. You don't look like you've been doing all of that. You look like a young man that's really still up and coming, you know what I mean? And so I appreciate you coming by and really taking time, because you currently reside in
West Palm Beach. Yeah, I don't get over here as much as I should. But I had a 4-year-old. My wife and I had a 4-year-old a few years ago, so I don't travel as much as I used to.
Gotcha. Yeah, that rule for a 4-year-old. No, it's not. It's not hard for the 4-year-old. It's hard for the parents.
It's hard for the parents.
Right. Are we there yet? For real. And so just thinking about, we talk a lot of times, and especially after the 2016 election, people say, well, all politics are local. And now this year for St. Pete, Pinellas County particularly, we're looking at these statewide races. So could you talk a little bit about some of the connections to the things that we want and how they relate to what's happening around the state and the connection between those statewide races?
Let me say it differently, though.
Okay, sure. Yeah, that's...
Because people say all politics is local, but I think that all politics is global. They're just played out locally.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So like if you look at what's happening in the UK right now, you look what's happening in Germany, look what's happening in South Africa, look what's happening in Uganda. I almost said Wakanda. Right? I almost said Wakanda. But you look what's happening in Wakanda too. Right? You look at that.
Yeah,
for real. Right?
Wakanda too. Yeah.
You look at what's happening in Venezuela, you look what's happening in Brazil. Something's in the air.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so when something is in the air, the thing about being a political strategist or being an activist or an operative or just being a person of the moment is you have to see when it's your moment, and you have to know how to speak to that moment.
Right.
And you have to know how to move into that moment. So the way I'm going to say is, this is our moment and we have to move into it.
Right.
And the reason why I say, politics is global, but it's played out locally, we move into it locally by every conversation, each individual conversation, each individual piece that we move on a local level. So the work that you all are doing, even though you're here and we're in West Palm Beach,
right?
You guys are doing the new deal for St. Pete,
right? So
we stole it. We doing the new deal for Palm Beach.
Hey man,
keep it real.
It belongs to all of us.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
But keep it real. We were grinding and doing CRA work.
Yeah.
Right, and having allies on the CRA and really moving community wealth work. You took that, and I looked up, and it was y'all were doing it over there.
Absolutely.
But that's the way.
We actually brought Chuck in. We flew Chuck in and was like, Chuck, come on, you need to talk about that work y'all doing now.
Shout out to Chuck Ridley.
Yes. That's my man, the Godfather.
The Godfather, Chuck Ridley. So, but that's the way it's supposed to be. But those politics are played out on the ground locally.
Right.
And so it's each individual conversation and how we're framing the moment and what we're asking people to do. Because all those thousands of little conversations, they add up and they move pieces.
Yeah.
And so you talk about how do you move economies, how do you make political demands. You do that through what you guys are doing here, what we're doing there, some stuff that's happening in Miami, some stuff that's happening in Tampa, some stuff that's happening in North Florida.
Right.
So I guess my question to you all, and my question like to everybody else out there is, are you looking at the moment correctly, and are you asking yourself, what do I need to do in the moment?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to do it for you. Right? Stuff, the overall political fabric of everything is the weakest it has been in generations. Now is our moment. Get in the game. If you cannot tell that people are spending millions of dollars to try to take out unions, and you sitting on the sideline like, I could be in the union and I'm not?
Right.
And the people that's doing it just got a big tax break. Why are they trying to take it from us?
On many levels, statewide and federally.
Statewide, federal.
Right.
You should be asking yourself the question why.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's real talk, man.
If they're instituting laws to make it harder, they're not investigating white supremacists, but they're investigating black activists.
Right.
Why?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This is our moment.
Speaking to it. That's right.
We're dangerous. Not only speaking to it, but moving to it.
Right.
You don't have to have the plan when you move, when you make that first step. You need to have the plan, you get the proper step. right.
But you got to be moving.
But you got to be moving.
Absolutely, man. That's a beautiful synopsis of that. And then thinking about, the moment that we're in and what's up next. So what are some of the things that we can look forward to from FPSU and the union and the work that y'all are doing? Or I should say that we're doing. So some things are a surprise. But I would say 2018 is going to be a very, very good year for us. Right.
At Florida Public Services Union, God willing, and the creek don't rise. But I would say, I will go back to what I said earlier. If you're a black business person, a female business person, even a white business person, you're a small business person, and you want to build power, I'm gonna pull Suge Knight at the Source Award. Then you need to come to FPSU.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
That's juice. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This is our time, and so let's move our capital back in our communities, and let's do more than that. Let's direct where it goes, and let's build from. Let's build the foundation that's gonna allow us to be able to feed our kids and our grandkids. On these businesses and this infrastructure going forward. And let's do the political work to make sure that we keep it.
Absolutely.
Right?
And then thinking about political work was something I meant to ask you earlier with the voter rights restoration amendment being on the ballot.
Right.
When it passes, not if, when it passes.
Right.
How is that going to play out? What do you see? How do you see the board or the pieces on the board shifting when you have 1.6, some say some 1.8 million voters returning to the rolls? What do you see happening, and how big is that for the work that you're doing in the community?
I think it's huge. I think it's huge for a variety of reasons. I think it's huge just from a social level. If you've served your debt to society, you deserve the right to have your rights restored to be able to vote.
Right.
So getting rid of this dynamic of creating second-class citizens, that has to go by the wayside.
Right.
But I would also caution us to think that like demographics as destiny that's not a real thing.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad. Yeah. Just like, okay, because they
no.
Right, they're gonna come to this party, and you got one party pushing real hard because they're assuming that everybody who comes on board is gonna be on this party or in this camp.
And here's how demographics are destiny. Is that by itself is good, but that moving in concert with a more engaged electorate is the next level, right? And so all these things have to move in concert, and we have to be very clear what our end game is. And because if there are people out there who do not want this country to look and feel and be different fundamentally, so they will once again, just because you make it don't mean somebody else can't take it if you aren't prepared for it.
That's right.
And that's what's happening now. Right. Mass incarceration, the attack on immigration. So I know a lot of black people that I know, they say, man, why are you out here hard on this immigration fight, trying to stop these people, deporting people? Because look at it like this. If somebody was in this country, if I had to go to another country for another reason, and somebody said, what would you do to feed your family? I would do damn near anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so if somebody is here hustling, working, being a law-abiding citizen, taking their kids to school every day,
right,
and trying to be the best person they can be, why am I going to try to make them a second-class citizen and hide in the shadows? Because they're using it and playing it off against me to hurt me.
Right.
I need to stand with that person, bring them out of the shadows, and help them to have the same rights that I have, so that they can also help me defend mine, because that's the only way we will have anything.
Right. And that's real talk, man. And that's, you know, man, Jabbar, we had those conversations. Like, that was one of the strengths of the civil rights movement, was when you had, you know, the working class coming together, where it was black, you know, and what they call poor whites. But it was working class people that united. And what the strategy at that time was to look at, you know, these white people and say, well, why you working with them? You better than them. And start getting them to start thinking that they're better, even though they're in the same economic condition, living condition, in some cases living worse than we're living, but they played that card to get the white people to do things that were against their own interests.
So let me tell you a hustle, right? If it's okay.
Yeah.
To like speak hustle talk.
Yeah.
On the show.
This LakeSide, we in Charles Park.
Okay, all right. Just speak hustle talk. Right. And you know this, right? If you dealing with somebody and they're a leader, okay?
I like the airport.
Okay, and they're a leader, and they're pointing to how great things were back then, and they're not looking toward the future, they leading you backwards.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So we have to have a vision of what, like we need to be informed and learn about what happened in the past, but we need to be looking forward. Right?
Real talk.
And in this political moment, people have been tricked because they're looking to a past that doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
It's our job to turn people's head and drag them to be looking forward.
Oh man, that's so powerful, because we see that on many levels, because you even have, you know, black leaders that romanticize how we had it, you know, Black Wall Street and how 22nd Street was, and they romanticize the past and how we need to get back to that. So man, that's just
to like steal something Jabbar said earlier. I don't want Black Wall Street. I want Black Silicon Valley.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I want Black New York.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I want the Black Apple.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
I want the Black 10 cents.
Yeah.
Right. I want the Black Alibaba.
Yeah.
I don't want the past. I want the future.
Yeah, man.
Right. I don't want Bitcoin. I want Black coin.
Right.
Which actually exists. I'm not saying about Black coin. But my point is
that actually exists.
That actually does exist. Right. We need to be looking toward the future and saying, how do we not only bring our skill sets into the new economy?
Right.
We also need to be thinking about what is our role as political activists in this new economic environment, but also in this new political environment. Because our game has to change too.
Right.
Like we talked about unions and why they've been under assault. Part of the reason that unions have been under assault and been attacked because they didn't keep up with the moment.
Right.
You trying to we have been trying to keep up with a visage of something that happened 60 years ago, and the union, and one thing I'm proud of with our union with FPSU and with SEIU is that, and you know this about me as a leader, here's one thing I will say: I am not satisfied with the status quo, and I am not satisfied with how things look now. I am always about what is the next thing.
That's right.
I'm on the next album.
Yeah,
I'm thinking about 2 albums from now.
That's right.
You have to be on the next thing. You have to be looking at what the future is.
Right.
You need to look down the road and say, here's where I need to be, and you build to that.
Yes.
You build to the end game. You don't build to where you are, because that's how you stay in the past.
Absolutely. And I can really bear witness to that, because the first time I really met you, we were in a session, and you kept asking, what's your end game? And, you know, I'm coming out of Child's Park. You're like, what's your end game? And, you know, our end game is just to make it through the day a lot of times, but not really thinking with the end in mind and then working backwards. And so I really have adopted that strategy, and I share that, you know, that viewpoint now. I'm always thinking, okay, what's the outcome that we're looking to have? Right. You know, when we set up this meeting, or we have this event, or we're looking to plan something, what outcome do we want? And then we can work our way back. And I think that's a credit to your leadership and just how it's helped me to grow, man. So I just wanted to publicly acknowledge that, and that, you know, I appreciate you for that.
Thank you. But I'm also challenging you one thing, right? Because you like, you know, big shot, brother John Muhammad, the legend.
Just so you know, this not gonna make the cut.
The legend. I'm depending on let this make the cut. But I would challenge you on this one thing now, is you're engaged on the community and you're helping people to focus. Challenge our community to ask a question: who do we need to be in 20 years?
Yeah.
Now, what are we fighting for now? What are we fighting for that's 20 years from now?
Right.
What are the jobs that we're fighting for that exist 20 years from now?
Yeah.
What are the economic opportunities that we're fighting for that exist 20 years from now?
Right.
What are the politics that exist 20 years from now that we're fighting for? And let's start fighting for that.
Yeah.
That's the end game.
Right.
And who needs to be in the fight?
Absolutely. That's great. I think that's a great way for us to end, and we're going to leave you with those questions, and we're going to answer those questions in community forums. And again, we thank you so much for watching the LakeSide Chat. Thank you for coming through, man.
No problem.
It's the first of many because we about to like turn it up, and we need your guidance and direction and commentary just to keep us abreast of what's happening politically. So this is an open invitation. I hope you accept.
Of course. Right.
All right. Well, thank you again for tuning in. Go to the page, facebook.com/LakeSide Chat. I'm your host, Brother John Muhammad. We had a wonderful conversation with Alphonso Mayfield. And as always, we want to encourage you to continue to believe and do good.